Welcome, everyone, to another episode of season 6 of the Runners Roundtable, where in this season we are diving deep into the stories that make us the runners that we are today. And each episode features a different runner sharing their favorite running memory. And this episode, I am joined by Julia. I want everyone to be patient with me because I want to say it right and I want you all to know how to say her last name right. So it's Julia Khvasechko. Khvasechko. Okay.
Perfecto.
Julia, you were previously on the podcast, and it's so interesting because when I spoke to you, you were going to be running. We had spoken the year that you were going to be celebrating 312 marathons at the Chicago Marathon. And now, this year in 2026, you're actually going to be running your 350th marathon at Chicago, which I will also be there. And I just love your love for not just the distance, but for pacing and the love that you have for helping others achieve their marathon dreams as a pacer. So I want to thank you in advance for that. But now I just want to know, give us that recap of where you started as a runner and how it is you've come to the point where in 2026 you will be celebrating your 350th marathon in October, which I know it's not like you're going to run Chicago and be done. I know there's going to be other experiences after that. So can you just give us that recap of how you started running? How have you think for most people who hear that number of marathons, maybe just a little bit of insight into your mindset and what mindset tools can you share with us to help us stop limiting ourselves?
Well, thank you so much for following my story and for being so kind. I myself have to pinch myself because I still remember that young girl who had to teach herself how to stand, how to walk, and eventually how to run. It's almost inconceivable to me, even though I'm living it, that I'm getting to 350. But when you find something you love, when you find something that fills your heart on every level, you just want to do it all the time. Some say I'm addicted to running, and maybe that's the truth, but I'm addicted to celebrating and living life. Let me back up. I learned about the marathon while I was very sick. In my 20s, I was treated at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and I watched the marathoners go by, and I was inspired and I was enthralled. What are they doing? How can I be them? I saw in them something that I never saw before, and I thought, could that be me? Could I possibly one day be them? A group of runners ran by and they got so many applause. They were called Fred's Team. Stephanie, you might know that Fred's Team raises money for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and that's where I was currently watching the marathon. And when someone next to me said, "They're running for us," I got chills up and down my arm. And I said, "Oh my God, this is what I need. This is what I need to focus on. This is what I need to do." I wanted to become that person who was over there on that side of the glass, who looked strong, who looked capable, who looked physically fit and happy. They had giant smiles, and I wanted to be just like them because to me, it would have meant that I was no longer that sick girl sitting in my wheelchair. But when I realized that I could do it for a reason, when I could dedicate myself to a higher purpose, my life changed. All of a sudden, my focus, my trajectory wasn't about how do I fix myself. It was about how can I run for Fred's team? How can
Mm.
I help the hospital? How can I help others? And I saw what it did to me. It lifted me up from being down here struggling to, oh my God, I can walk down the hall with only one crutch today. And then eventually I can walk down the hall without just occasionally holding onto the wall. Like I didn't see it then. I've had 26 years to look back. And when you look back, you have a clearer vision. When I dedicated myself to helping others, my life became a blessing, a freaking blessing instead of a curse, which is what cancer really felt like when I was 24.
That's so beautiful because life is hard. Life is really hard. And I find that the older I've gotten, I've come to realize that the way to manage living life is to embrace different perspectives. And it's to embrace seeing the world as full of opportunities, as full of adventures, as full of reframes. And that's really hard. That is really hard, especially with, everything that's going on in the world, with the news cycles, with just all the roles and expectations that each of us have to bear on the daily. And yet it's important to see what you said, which I wrote down because I loved it, where it's like addicted to celebrating life, because it's true. There is a lot going on, but at least we're here. And at least we're able to experience life. At least we're able to create change if that's what we want to do, right? Like we are capable of celebrating the life that we have, even through the challenging, which now hearing you say that, I'm like, well, no wonder you've ran so many marathons when you're able to see those challenging moments of running 26.2 as a celebration of the fact that you can run
Exactly.
26.2.
I get to do this, Stephanie. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. Running taught me to dream big, to dream for something that I couldn't possibly do until I grow into the person that can. Running taught me to believe in myself. It taught me to believe in my dreams, and it taught me to not limit myself, but to see how can I challenge those limits instead of, okay, you can't do this today, but perhaps I can put it out there and work towards it, and one day I can.
So I have a question for you because I find that on the coaching side of things, right? I coach predominantly women. And one of the biggest things that I see that they have to undergo is that process of believing in themselves, in believing that they are capable of doing the thing that they want to do. Are there any shortcuts to that belief? Like, is there anything we can do to kind of get there faster? Or is it really just you've got to live through it and show up every day to like, I guess it's more like laying the foundations, right? Brick by brick where you're believing. Are there any shortcuts in your experience? Are there
You
any shortcuts here? Because I know we want them.
You have to be consistent with whatever you want. You can't just do something a couple of times. You have to be consistent with it. And it's that consistency that builds the framework, that builds the foundation upon which you stand. And then you have to break it down into microscopic little goals. Maybe that first goal is just to run 1 mile. And that was the case for me. And then once you accomplish that, celebrate. Don't just go to the next goal. Really celebrate, see how far you've come, and then set the goal just a tiny bit higher. Maybe the next goal is to run that 1 mile just 30 seconds faster. And then after you do that, pat yourself on the back and celebrate because you have to celebrate you. You can't compare yourself to other people. There's always going to be someone faster. There's always going to be someone who can run longer. There's always going to be someone who can look better as they're crossing the finish line. But you have to be the best version of you, Stephanie. That's your job. And if you celebrate yourself, bless you,
Thank you.
and you keep setting those accomplishments just a tiny bit outside of your reach and you work towards it and be consistent with it. Sometimes you have a bad day. Sometimes you wake up and you just feel like crap. Sometimes the weather's just caca, but you have to be consistent with it. Force yourself to go out there and do that thing that is hard. There's that book, Eat the Frog. Do the hard thing first. And then after you do that hard thing, celebrate. And then have a moment, and then set your sights just a little bit higher. And of course, if you don't celebrate yourself throughout the time that you're doing it, the hard things all of a sudden become more challenging. I might not be making any sense.
No, you're making complete sense. And I mean, there's actually a question which I'll ask you later on that relates to this. So, but I won't get ahead of myself. You are making complete sense because it's very easy to get caught up in the quote unquote grind of running, right? Where we stop seeing how special it is that we are running. And part of that is the jest. Oh, it's just 3 miles. Oh, it's just 10 miles. Or it's just, or I'm marathon training. So it's just 10 miles. And it's like, none of that is just. Like, there's no just about anything that you're doing. So give yourself the credit of doing the thing that you're doing. And I always say, for me personally, right, I think running is incredibly hard. I think it's a very hard sport. It is mentally hard, it is physically hard, it is a hard sport. And I personally don't believe it ever gets easier. What changes is, again, our perspective of what we're doing. So I can tell you, running is hard. Running is hard. I ran this morning. I didn't want to run. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I kept telling myself, like, but you get to do it, right? Like, you get to do it. And all you have to do is show up. It doesn't have to be perfect. And what is perfect, right? Like, what does that even mean? You just have to show up and then see what happens. And usually, what happens in my case is I start and I'll grumble a little bit of like, oh, this feels really hard. And then afterwards, I find my rhythm or I accept that, like, hey, this is hard. And because I can accept that it is hard, I can keep going. So I think that how we keep going is, yes, the consistency, like being consistent, especially on those days where our perspective is that, oh, it feels harder than normal. But what you're saying is that added level of you celebrate yourself every step of the way because you recognize that even when it's hard, you're still doing it. Even when it's hard, you're stronger than you think because you are doing it. And all of that deserves to be celebrated because the reality is you take a look at a lot of people in our country in particular, so many people aren't running at all. So many people aren't moving their bodies at all. They're making a choice to not move their bodies. And the fact that you do make that choice is something that should be celebrated, or it should be seen as not normal. Because again, when we're in this running space, it's all so normal. Of course, I went for a run. Everybody's going for a run. And it's like, no, but it's not. Like, it seems like everybody's going for a run because maybe you have a lot of friends that are runners. Maybe you follow a lot of accounts that are running accounts, but that's not necessarily the reality that we live in. So that does make sense to me.
The only runs you ever regret are the runs you didn't take. No matter how you feel, when you complete the run, you feel good. And when you feel good, give yourself a little pat on the back and say, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to bring us to this season. It's the Beyond Pace season, and ask you if you've got a memory that you can share with us. I know you had a few memories that were kind of percolating there. So I want to give you the opportunity to share the memories that your heart is calling you to share today, whether it's one or two or three. We'll figure out a way to weave a theme to bring all those memories together for everyone who's listening.
Thank you for giving me a chance to ponder on them. You know, I've run a great deal of races. I've run in some amazing places around the world. I've run all the majors. No, excuse me, most of the majors. I've been so fortunate. I've seen beautiful landscapes and I've met amazing friends. It's hard to just boil it down into one memory, but there is a very special memory, and I will lead into it. I met my husband at a marathon. It was April 2010, the Pine Line Trail Marathon. And he lived in Alaska and I lived in New York. And the way we saw each other as friends was sharing our running journey. And 3 years later, after meeting about once a month, sometimes once every other month, at a marathon, at a state that we both needed to complete our journey, in January 2013, at the finish line of the Louisiana Marathon in Baton Rouge, he did the thing that every girl dreams of. My sweetheart went down on his knee and he took out a ring and he asked me to run the marathon of life with him. And that was a very fond memory because he was my soulmate and I met him at a marathon by chance. And that was a very special memory. So now you know how we met. Now you know that the marathon connects us. In January 2014, at the Maui Oceanfront Marathon, we created a beautiful memory that can't top any other memory, especially if you're a romantic. It was his 50th state. It was my 50th state. We had already planned to finish our 50 state together before he even proposed to me. And once we had the commitment, I contacted the race director, Les Wright, and asked his permission to get married, or as we like to say, Mauied, at the Maui Oceanfront Marathon. And he said yes. So, with a few choice friends, with a few special members of our family, we started the marathon as regular people. It starts at 5 in the morning. It's dark because it's hot in Maui, as you know, living in Florida.
Yeah.
When we got to mile 18, we had a small circle of people waiting for us and an officiant with a Hawaiian getup, and he had a beautiful shell and water from the ocean. And we had a blessing. We joined hands, we exchanged rings, we said our own vows, and he blessed us with this beautiful water. And he said, "With this run, I thee wed." And we crossed the finish line 8 miles later as 50 state finishers and husband and wife. And I don't think any other marathon memory could top that for me because it's what I've dreamed of. It's what every girl dreams of, I believe. To be with your sweetheart in a beautiful, blessed place, doing an activity that you both love that brought you together. It was just very special for me.
Oh, Biggie. My dog wants that. I think my dog wants to celebrate you too. He's like, yes, I love that story. I he probably sensed that I was getting emotional because I'm like, I'm you know when you're on the verge of tears and you can feel the tears. That's where I was just thinking of the serendipitous nature of life, right? When you think of meeting your husband in 2010 and like, what are the chances of that? I mean, yes, like you can meet a lot of people at a race, right? Like you can meet a ton of people, but then you're going to tell me that for the next 3 years, right? There's a lot of effort put on both of your parts to make sure that you are meeting each other. And then also, out of curiosity, in 2010, were you, both of you were independently going for the 50 states?
Yes. We, at the awards ceremony, we found out that he was coming from the state of Alaska to do the 50 states, which is huge because you just have to get over to the 48s to begin with. And I was coming from New York to do the 50 states. And we had a little like, I've come a long way for this race. And he said, no, I've come a long way for this race. And he meant physically, I've come a long way because I literally retaught myself how to use my body. And he's come a long way because he came from Alaska. We were both doing something that we wanted for ourselves, and we met along the way and we compared notes. Which states did he still need? Which states did I already have? And then we set the next race based upon the state that we both needed so we can continue to get to know each other and slowly build our lives together.
That's why I'm like, that's just serendipity, right? Because I don't know how far into the journey were you in 2010? Because it's for me, I'm like logistically, I'm trying to do okay, so how many states had Julia done so that by the time January 2014 reaches, I just think it's magical of like Hawaii is the very last one, right? Like there's so many states that you could have done that he could have done as well. And it
As
just
you
seems
know,
magical. Yeah.
it's a lot, as you know, it's a lot of prep. It's a lot of, figuring out the logistics. And since he came from Alaska, he knew he wanted to do Hawaii. And I already knew that it was going to be either Hawaii or Alaska because they're so far.
Yeah.
And meeting him, I went to visit him in Alaska and do a race together with him so he could show me his great state or some beautiful features of his state. And we went to national parks. We both love nature. We went to races that were off the beaten path so we can run in the woods or in the mountains or just be around nature. And so, because I already completed Alaska visiting him, I knew it had to be Hawaii. When we got down to the last couple of states, maybe 10 left. I had 10 when we met. Sorry, I remember your question now.
Yeah.
He had about 14 when we met. And
Still.
so we were close to our where we wanted to go. He is the one who made me become a marathon maniac. When I met him, I was running 4 marathons a year, which was like normal people. But because he was on a goal to finish by a certain time, he was doing 12 marathons a year.
Um,
So I wanted to be with this man. I wanted to spend time with him. I wanted to get to know him. And also, I wanted someone to accompany me on these wonderful adventures with. And we just projected, okay, this year we're going to do these 10 races. And we started to plan. And it's all about the planning, it's all about the logistics. The
mhm.
running is the fun part, that's the celebratory part. The planning is the hard part. But I had a partner now. Like I would pick the room, he would pick the car, and we would share the journey and double our enjoyment.
How, so it's been 2014, right? So you are actually coming up on has your anniversary passed? Like, or
It's
you're coming,
this it's this weekend.
are you running this weekend?
Yes, we are going back to Maui. Maui Oceanfront Marathon is the place where we had our nuptials, and we're going back for our 12-year anniversary, and we're both going to be pacing, and I'm so happy. I have a special little outfit that I wear. It's a running skirts outfit.
So that was okay. I feel like I have so many questions because this is like, this could be just it is a romance novel, and I love my romance books. I am a huge fan. And this is just your story is like the romance novel of my runner dreams. It's so beautiful. So
Thank
you
you.
do go back. Do you go back to Maui every January?
We finished my first round there and we got married. And my second round was 3 years later and we went
Okay.
back there. And my third round was 3 years later and we went back there. And then they had a fire, as you might recall.
Yep.
And so they canceled the race the following year and we went to a different place. I mean, it's kind of expensive to go to Maui.
Yeah.
You can't do it every year unless you live there. So we planned for it. And we knew that after we heard about the fire, we knew that once we accumulated enough resources, we were going to go back so we can honor the beautiful city, give back to this amazing culture, and celebrate our union. And for the first time ever, Stephanie, they are having pacers. And when I saw that, I instantly wrote and said, I want to pace this race. And they said yes. So I'm coming back to pace, which is my favorite thing, as you know. I never thought this could happen, but it's possible now that I could pace in every state.
It's it's a, I'm like my brain is trying to wrap itself around, right? Because here you are, just the trajectory of your life, right? You are at Sloan Kettering, right? You
Yes.
are watching New York City marathoners do the race, and you think to yourself, I want to be able to do that one day. And then you go and you do that, and you go from being in a hospital to running 4 marathons a year by the time you meet your husband. right? Then you meet him, and all of a sudden you're running more marathons, more races a year. You complete round one of the 50 states challenges. At what point did you start pacing in all of that? Because there's definitely this, I'm doing this for myself, a lot of empowerment, but at some point you also start doing this for others, which is now empowering, right? Like self empowerment, but now it is empowering. And I know all the running is still for you because you love it so much. But I'm curious, at what point did you say, I want to start pacing?
Well, it's a great question. I had at that point run more than 30 marathons, but a lot of them had been for charity. So when I joined Fred's team to run initially, it was to raise money for the hospital. But then I learned about other events that other groups that I can help. I ran for Team in Training, which raises money for inner city school gyms in New York. I ran for oh Team in Training. It was the Purple people who raised money for leukemia and lymphoma. And I ran for NF, neurocystic fibromatosis, which has tumors all over your body. And I started to, oh, the National Brain Tumor Foundation and the National Brain Tumor Alliance, they were two separate. Anyway, every race was about how can I raise money? And then 2008 happened. And you might recall in 2008, there was a huge financial crisis in New York where I live, and my cash cow dried up. I couldn't ask anyone for money. People were not aware of how they were going to feed their families,
Yeah.
including me, to be honest. I used to work in finance and I didn't think about money then. And then when 2008 happened, my wall came crumbling down. The rug was pulled from underneath me, and I thought, how am I going to raise money for marathons? How am I going to pay my mortgage? I decided I had to stop running because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't raise the funds I needed. I couldn't even raise the airfare I needed.
Yeah.
And I took a long, hard look at what I wanted and I saw, okay, well, I've got, I'm halfway through this running journey already. No, not halfway. I'm about a fifth of the way through this running journey and I have to take a step back. And miraculously, I already met Shane that miraculously the universe provided. I figured out a way. I became a marathon maniac. And I realized that marathon maniacs, it's a group of people. Running unites. And I knew more people than I didn't before know how to go about it. But there was this website that allowed people to see, well, we need this pacer. We need this pacer for this race. And I was scared, but I applied. I read somewhere once, if it scares you, no, if it excites you, and it scares the crap out of you, go do it. And I applied as a pacer with already 30 somewhat marathons under my belt and thinking there's another way I can give back. I can't raise the funds. I still want to see Shane. I still want to keep running. I still want to keep plucking away at that goal, that 50-50 state finisher line goal. And I found a way. The universe provided. It was the marathon in, oh, let me think. What was the name of it? It was in Nevada, excuse me. It was the Rock and Roll Marathon,
Mm-hmm.
and it needed at that time I saw a posting on the website that they were looking for pacers and they needed a 4:15 pacer. And coincidentally, in those days I was in my 30s. That's what I was running. 4:15 was pretty much my MO. Like 10 times a year I was pretty much doing that.
Yeah.
So I applied. I knew I could do it, but I didn't know if I could do it consistently. So now my trajectory changed entirely. It was about how can I be a consistent metronome? And every time I went out, it was 9:43, 9:43, every mile 9:43. So I can clock it, so I can do it backwards and forwards, so I can show up and be the best pacer humanly possible. I found a new way to help other people doing what they love.
That's incredible because I thought you were going to tell me that you took a break from running. Like, I was like, oh, I can totally see where running became just not something you could do because of finances. But that is such a clever way to not only continue running the races, but to also continue giving back to the community because I don't think people understand or can fully like wrap their heads around the importance of support during a race, whether it is from a pacer, whether it is from the spectators, whether it's from your fellow runners, like the people that are there in the trenches with you make all the difference. In my opinion, all the difference. You can be having a challenging day, but if you are surrounded by other runners, and I say this from personal experience where I've had some races that are just so challenging, but the fact that I am surrounded by other runners, that helps me move forward because I remind myself they're in this to like we're in this together. We may not be talking, we may not be, like communicating our struggles together, but we are in this together. So um I think I feel like that's just such a clever like workaround of all of that of you can still give back, you can still be a powerful part of the running community even if it looks different. And I will say this, I've said this before on a previous episode that pacing is you have my respect. Like, oh, all runners have my respect, but pacers in particular, because you have to be able to be that metronome because you have these people that are relying on you. Sometimes it's people who it's their first time. Sometimes it's people who are looking to get a PR. Sometimes it's people who need your presence to feel safe on the course. So it is a huge responsibility that you're carrying to pace people. So thank you for the pacing. And, thank you for that website that was up that had that showed you that there was another way to be in the marathoning space, to be in the running space differently. Because again, it's like, oh, fundraising is so challenging. Fundraising can sometimes feel like another job. And it really is. There's a lot of vulnerability that goes with fundraising because you are asking people to contribute to your racing goals and to your running goals. So I love that. I have a series of questions for you. The first one is going to be thinking of these three races and these three periods of time in particular, that April 2010, January 2013, and January 2014. When you look at those experiences and what they mean to you, how would you say they've shaped who you are as a runner today?
Mhm. That's a great question. Um, Again, I have to reiterate that running has taught me that the word impossible is not correct. If you break it down, it's I apostrophe possible. I'm possible instead of impossible. Nothing is impossible. You already said the miracle of meeting someone that you are meant to be with at a marathon with gazillions of other people. And the miracle of him wanting to be with me, even though I lived in New York City, is incredible because he lived 5,000 miles away. But we knew that this kind of certainty, it was actually Rehoboth Beach Marathon. It was our first kiss. We had already met, we'd already run a marathon together, but we'd run another marathon together. But then we both kind of looked at each other after we finished the marathon and we hugged and we kissed. And we never did that before. And after we kissed, we both knew this kind of certainty happens only once, if you're lucky. So marathon taught me that nothing is impossible. Whatever your goal is, whatever your dream is, believe in it. Have faith in it. It can happen to you. Why not you? Miracles happen every single day. Running taught me to believe that you can do it, whatever it is, whatever you want. Go for it. You got nothing to lose. Just grab it with both hands and go for it. And sometimes you fight, you fail. Sometimes you fall down. And I learned that from doing a bunch of different things and running. But still, you pick yourself back up and you get back on the horse and you remind yourself how far you've come instead of thinking about how much further you have to go. I'm thinking about a specific race, Stephanie. It's called the Beast of Burden. It's a 100-mile race in Lockport, New York. Anyway, I DNF'd and then I DNF'd again and then I DNF'd again. But you know what? The fourth time I came back and I was fifth female. Nothing is impossible. Running taught me that you are possible and everything you want for you is possible, whether it's the man of your dreams or that PR or helping someone achieve their dreams or whatever it is you want for yourself. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other and believe in the power of your dreams.
I adore that because I'd say that the person you are when you start running and when you start training for, let's say, a marathon is not the same person as the person who crosses the finish line. And kind of to what we were talking about earlier in terms of your belief in yourself, that is probably the biggest transformation that happens. Now, whether it's across one marathon or 350 marathons, we are faced daily with the opportunity to believe in ourselves, right? We are faced daily with the opportunity to believe in what we're possible. So I love that because marathoning has given you so much on so many different levels. And I can see why you've done as many marathons as you have, because not only is it a gift and not only is it something that you get to do, but it's something that has given so much to you, right? Where it makes sense that you want to continue to give back to the distance and to the people because there's so much you've gotten out of it that it's like, how can you not share when what you've gotten is so tremendously huge and it is love? And guess what? There is no packaging love. Love is so unlimited and so unbound that now I see it as every time you run a race, that's what you're doing. It's that love is pouring out of you into everyone else that's there. So no wonder you can do so many when it's like you have an overflowing cup and you want everyone to experience that love as well. That's beautiful. Okay. If you could go back in time and speak to your younger runner self, what would you say to her?
Appreciate every step. My younger self was annoyed that she couldn't do a 350, which is what she needed to get into Boston. And when I got 354, I thought, you suck. When I trained for 4 months and I didn't hit my mark, I didn't celebrate myself the way I do now. And now in my 50s, I would give anything to run a 354 again. What I would tell that young girl is appreciate where you are now and not compare yourself to your friends or your friends' friends or the person you saw on Instagram. That's their journey. Appreciate your journey and remember that it's a gift to be able to do this. And I know I keep repeating myself, but it's how I feel. I just didn't realize how fast I was and how easy it was for me in my 30s. And now, 20 years later, I can see that that girl didn't realize what a gift she had. You're never going to be this young again. You have to celebrate where you are now instead of where you want to go. It's good to have a goal, but it's also good to give yourself a little kudos and say, you did that. You go, girl.
but I think that's what, where we started the conversation, where I told you, I feel like adulthood and going through the aging process, I guess, is perspective. And it is that of, I didn't know. And had I known, I would have been more grateful, or I would have celebrated myself more. Or the hardest one for me is I would have been gentler with myself had I known. So flipping that is, what hopes do you have for your future runner self?
Well, I want to keep running as long as I humanly possibly can. And brings me back to this quote that I once read. In order to have a happy life, you need four things: something to do, someone to love, something to hope for, and something to give back.
Mm.
I found in marathoning all four. And my goal for myself is to keep marathoning as long as I can. But now that I finished the 50 states 4 times, now my goal is to see the world. I want to run in countries and cities. I want to experience new places and taste new foods and smell new smells and feel new climates and see the world. And of course, I'm limited, as we all are. So I'm giving myself an opportunity to tell myself, okay, you're going to do 4 new places a year, and that's it. And if you can't do more than that, that's okay. You're going to live a long time. You're going to see a lot of things. So my goal is to run in 4 new countries or 4 new cities every year, pretty much like I first started, and to appreciate them and not be mad at myself that I can't do 30 this year.
And it goes back to that, what you were saying, right? It's kind of like, just slow down and enjoy where you're at right now. Slow down and savor what you're experiencing right now, which, as I think part of it is also just being a runner, right? Like our runners, like we're always like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's the next experience? When it's like, but wait, have you fully integrated this experience before we move on? Have we fully like felt the impact of what we just did? So I love that. And I can't wait to see what four you do and where you continue to take your love story, right? Like this love story with running. Okay, this is a question that I've been dying to ask you because you've already alluded to it multiple times without even realizing it. But the question is, how do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
Mm. That's a great question. Um, I think I'm very simple. After I complete my marathon and I come home, I give myself a massage. I go to a place and I have pampering. My body works hard. And after, training, pacing, completing the race, doing the flight back and forth, my body works hard. When I come home, I give myself the opportunity to just relax and have a massage. And a 90-minute deep tissue massage is like 8 hours of sleep for your body.
That sounds wonderful. And I, out of curiosity, this is an off topic, like an off questions, not one of my set questions, but out of curiosity, what part of your body needs the most love post marathon?
It depends. If it's a flat course versus if it's an uphill course or a downhill course. On a downhill course, your legs in the front, your quads, because they're like pressing on the gas and the brake at the same time.
Mhm.
And if it's an uphill course, then your glutes and your hamstrings. But I think your core from your belly button to your knees is always what needs the most love because that is the engine. Many people who don't run think that it's all legs, but really, Stephanie, it's all core.
It's amazing how much of your body is involved, right? Because yes, it everyone thinks running is your legs, it's your knees, it's all this stuff. And it's like you need to have a strong core to support your upper body. so that your upper body isn't like just slouching down. Like you want a strong upper body as well, so that all those forces that are coming from the ground up, right? Like you can manage it. So it really is the entire body, and it's every single muscle. It is, and it's a huge mental muscle as well, gets worked in it. So I love that you get a massage, especially because you yourself know what that's like, and you're usually on the giving end of the massages. So to be on the receiving end of that too has to be very affirming for you.
That's, that's because I valued it so much because it meant the world to me to have it. I decided when the universe gave me an opportunity, I'm going to study it. And my second career, I went back to school after my world fell apart and rebuilt myself brick by brick. And now I'm a full-time licensed massage therapist, and I get to help people feel good in their bodies. And I work predominantly with runners, so a runner knows what a runner needs.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, absolutely. That's why I especially love whenever I teach yoga. I love teaching yoga to runners because it's it's a gift both ways, right? Where it's like, I know what you need, and we're going to explore that while we're going through that. So I totally feel that. All right, I have two questions left. The first one is the easiest one, and that is just, where do we find you and how do we best connect with you?
On Instagram, I'm Global Pacer Julia. On Facebook, I am Julia K. Garling because my husband's name is Garling, like darling with a G. And my website, my business is called Marathon Massage. And you can find me at Marathon Massage online. I don't know.
Okay. Last question that I have for you is, what are your final words for us?
Hmm. That's always a hard one because marathoning has been so good to me. It's been a joy to see others find marathoning. So, whatever you're doing, no matter how, if you're running a 5K or you're running a 10K or you're running a marathon, somebody out there is wishing they can do that. So, whatever it is that you're doing, be grateful that you can do it. Be grateful that your body is sustainable doing it regularly, and then go out and infect others. Somebody else is looking to do what you're doing. Take them by the hand and say, let's go for a run, and show them that they too can do it and they too can be their own freaking hero. Infect others. Be like, take a stone, throw it out, and let all the ripples envelop the world. I think people would be better off if we all went running. We'd be happier as a society. We'd love each other more. We'd appreciate each other more, especially yourself. Be kind to yourself. You already stated it. Be gentle to yourself. If all you can do today is a 5K, then celebrate that, because whatever you can do today, just be the best version of who you are today. When you're feeling good about yourself, it shines. You go out and you create that ripple effect in the world. If you're happy with who you are and what you can do, you can help others more.
I love that. And I'm not going to say anything else. So, everyone, thank you for listening. Julia, thank you for being here and for sharing yourself with us so wholeheartedly. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.